Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me today is Travis Steffen, Chief Revenue Officer of Duma Financial. Thank you very much for joining me today, Travis.
Thanks for having me.
All right, before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. Travis, I always like to start by asking how people found their way to the cannabis industry. So where did you get your start?
Great question. So I've been starting, scaling, and selling technology companies for the past 15 years. Throughout that time, I've been fortunate enough to have a variety of different great outcomes. I've started to work with a number of the more notable technology accelerators across Silicon Valley, 500 Startups, Techstars, variety of different venture funds to mentor their portfolio company founders, and a variety of other accelerated programs as well. In one of them that I was a mentor for, two founders came through that had reached really deep product market fit in a nascent industry. It was Rufus, Casey, and Tom Wilson from Growflow. And we started working together in an accelerator mentorship capacity back in 2016, and just hopped on a call every week with them to guide them through the early days of a company, raising capital, scaling a team, all the things in between. And by 2017 and 2018, their growth had taken off such that they knew they wanted to continue to be innovative and build products, but they didn't necessarily want to spend all their time scaling an organization. It was very serendipitous timing. I had just exited a prior company, as did many of the executives that I've built companies with in the past. So they, for a couple of months, tried to court me to come on and lead the organization to the next level. Eventually, I agreed to kind of try it out with the team. The team was incredible. This was back in late 2018, early 2019. And after that, recruited the other executives that I had worked with. None of us had experience in cannabis whatsoever, but we knew that the team at Growflow at the time, which was maybe a little over a dozen people, were very deep subject matter experts. So we believed, our thesis was that combined with quite a bit of experience in building and scaling technology companies, and combined with their deep subject matter expertise within the industry, it could make for a really powerful combination, and that's exactly what happened.
What was it about Growflow that really that really made you think it could be a differentiator in the cannabis industry?
So Growflow was built in the state of Washington, specifically for the state of Washington's compliance program. There were issues with the state compliance program at the time. There were issues with many of the vendors that were in the industry at the time. It was a very difficult business to be in. And these two founders had really cracked the code on just being deeply in touch with customers and being very, very customer driven in development. Many founders say they're this, but in all actuality, they're essentially using their customer communication to validate their own opinions. These guys were very different. They went in with a fact-finding mission each time. And the experience they were able to create through the team and through the hands-on white glove approach was very rare. And so when I came in, I knew, okay, we can scale culture, we can scale communication, we can scale collaboration, we can inject strategy, we can inject capital, and everything in between. But what we didn't want to disrupt was the founders' ability to be very deeply in touch with the market and to be almost collaborative in building the platform that they wanted to see. That resulted in really great growth rate, stable, secure retention rates, which are foundational growth metrics. And then across the board, we started to inject a similar strategy little by little across new states. That inevitably resulted over the course of the next 3 years in the company becoming the largest wholesale seed to sale compliance platform in the country, the fastest growing and most stable retail POS system in the country in terms of the amount of customers gained versus the amount of customers churned. And those two factors, when combined, allowed us to become the optimal place for vertically integrated and rapidly growing operations with multiple locations. That sort of blend, while it is an incredibly difficult and rapidly shifting industry, became foundational to our ability to succeed. So across the board, the things and the conditions that were occurring around us were really unique. So very, very much characteristic of a nascent industry, which is rapidly growing, lots of growing pains. But in any highly regulated industry, the easiest way to say it, there are easier ways to make money as an entrepreneur than to participate in a highly regulated industry. You have to really be passionate about the subject matter. So the team really, really was and wanted to make a huge impact, and were really willing to trudge through the mud in some ways to do so. So we were able to navigate a multi-state compliance effort, and no one else had really cracked that code except for maybe one or two other operations that operated very, very differently and targeted completely different customer subsets.
What was the background for the founders? Were they in other plant touching aspects of the industry, or what was it that they decided to sort of get into an ancillary analytics platform?
Yeah, they were not. So essentially, and Growflow is a compliance, seed to sale, analytics, operations, management, everything in between platform, basically full stack seed to sale compliance and inventory management. And the analytics part has deepened as of late, but wasn't the first offering that the company had. Essentially what those two guys did, and they didn't have previous plant touching experience. They were entrepreneurs in other places. Tom specifically worked at Oracle, was a principal engineer over there. Rufus was in the action sports industry and ran a marketing company there. They were both passionate about the cannabis industry and wanted to further it in some way, and actually started their journey by wanting to start a plant touching operation. So they started to attend meetups and have conversations with other licensees. And as a result of those conversations, they were actually turned on to solving a different problem through software. So that's inevitably what led them to their journey. And they just continued that path, asking questions, participating with the market, and then asking them what could make this the best experience you've ever had. And across the board, almost all of them said, I want a faster product, I want one that's more intuitive, and I want way better customer support than what I'm getting. So that's kind of what we hung our hat on early on, was the actual service side of the business. While we didn't charge for it, it was implied that it was a component of every customer subscription, as still is today.
Once you came on board, what were some of the changes that you implemented that helped the company scale?
The first thing I did was established a clearly defined company culture. We aligned around and we co-created a number of company core values. And we made sure that every single decision we made from here on out would follow those to a T. And once the team really believed that that's in actuality what those were, and saw a difference in contrast to other companies they had been a part of in the past, where those values just collect dust on the wall all day long, and they were able to contribute to the deepening of our philosophy of building a company. That was the first and the most important change that we made. And it was never something that we reached. It was always something that had to have consistent effort every single day, even to this day. Beyond that, we established proper communication channels, standard operating procedures. We got really operationally dialed. So we had automations everywhere. We would pick up employees from other companies who had seen things that we were wanting to create, and we leaned on their expertise. The philosophy that we had as managers and as leaders was servant leadership. We wanted to hire the best possible talent we could, make it a fantastic place for them to work, and give them an objective and get out of their way. Now that oftentimes, if you make a mishire, can get you in trouble. But our philosophy is we're going to be very rigorous in our hiring practices. So that was another thing that we did, is we built an internal recruiting organization that had 6 to 7 layers. So we were very, very careful on who we brought on and how we brought them on. We did every single bit of research on every new team member you could possibly do. The team itself that they would be working with would be the ones that would vet them in their culture interview. We made sure that the standards were very, very high. And we let everyone know, here is your path to advancement. It was very, very clear almost like when you go to college, you know exactly what courses you have to take to get your degree. We wanted to create a similar experience for the team to know exactly what they had to do to advance within the organization. And if and when that person was ready for advancement and we didn't have a seat that was open for them, we went and found them one at another organization that could further their career. So everyone knew that their dreams and their goals as team members mattered. We wanted to show them with no uncertain, in no uncertain terms, that we were advocating for their development every single day while the company was striving to reach its goals. And because of that, we had a more focused team. We had a more creative team, and the team knew, even on their last day, when some of them eventually got poached to go run teams in other companies, we would celebrate them. The culture that we created was really, really, really great. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of in my career so far.
What were those core values?
So they evolved a little bit over the course of the company's life. So, for example, the core values were one thing until we went and raised our Series B in April of 2020, right before the pandemic. And then we redid them. And we wanted to create a higher performance culture that allowed us to scale faster. And that's what we raised that round for. So we had 7 at that point in time. And now that Growflow has been purchased, fast forwarding it into the future, now that Growflow was acquired in February of 2022 by Duma, the world's largest financial services provider in cannabis, there are different values now as a combined company. But at the time, the core values that worked really well for us, we had 7 of them, which was be customer obsessed, which we kind of more or less stole from Amazon. Success leads clues, right? So we wanted to make sure we were learning from other very successful organizations. Over communicate, we got that one from Patrick Lencioni, and his executive coaching group, the Table Group, and all of his dozens of books that he's written. Challenge respectfully. We want to create a challenge culture where our team members and our knowledge workers felt empowered to actually push back on leaders, whereas in prior organizations, they felt afraid to do so. And they were thinking through a lens of self-preservation rather than co-creation. And that happens in most organizations, and we wanted to squash that from the very beginning. 4 was extreme ownership. Same title as the very famous book by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, one of the most impactful books I've ever read in my journey as an entrepreneur. 5th was kind of a combination value, stay curious and stay scrappy. This ensured that we always maintained a culture of experimentation. And even though we were a venture-backed company, we didn't want to fall for the trap that most companies fall for, to default to throwing money at problems or throwing people at problems. We wanted to throw our brain power at problems and to do our best to pretend as though we were bootstrapped and solve them together. And that's what fueled our culture of trying things, hypothesizing, testing, etc. 6th was do less, better, which means we want to maintain a level of focus that most companies in the industry could not maintain. Because they wanted to do so much to get the short-term sale that they were not able to go deep and become the best in the world at one thing. And 7th was results get rewarded. We wanted to make sure that, and I'll pull no punches on this one, we wanted to make sure that we could align our team members' individual greed, which we all have, whether it's PR friendly or not. We're all, the Byzantine general's problem, quote unquote, is everyone is going to inevitably operate in their own self-interest to some degree. Even if we pretend we don't. We wanted to align our own team members' greed with our organization's goals. And we wanted to be explicit about the fact that we were doing that. That could have been financial in nature. It could have come from praise and advancement and responsibilities, or whatever deeply motivated that individual. We wanted to align those rewards for them and unlock them over the course of time as per their output and results. There were some of those values that over the course of time, we lived more than others. In an organization, each team's embodiment of those values looks a lot different. And so what we would do is we had a biannual survey, and we had monthly engagement surveys that went out to the team to get their pulse on a number of different things. But twice a year, we would do surveys around the core values and culture of the company, and ask each team and each member of each team quasi-anonymously, how they felt as an organization and as a team, we were living each one of those values. And so we mined them for information and ideas on how we can deepen those. And we made sure to hold ourselves accountable to take action in the direction toward them.
I really like that seventh value because it kind of lays everything on the table. What do you want? What motivates you? And how does that serve us best?
Right. I think that's really important. And I think too often founders fall for the trap of thinking that their team cares about the business as much as they do. Mm-hmm. And they've read a number of blog posts or listened to podcasts or read books or what have you that say, if you don't have people that are intrinsically motivated, you've made the incorrect hire. And I think that's a lazy approach, to be honest with you. Those people are unicorns. They're 1 in 10 million types of hires. The God's honest truth is everyone has their goals. Everyone has their motivations in their career. And it's unlikely that someone is going to stay with your business for the duration of their career. It just is. Now, some will, but most people won't. They have aspirations. So instead, we took a different approach and we said, look, we don't expect you to be here forever. But while you're here, we want to make sure that we can contribute to where you want to go, whether that's with us or elsewhere. So tell us what your motivations look like. Do you want to go become a founder yourself? Do you want to be an executive somewhere? Are you happy with what you're doing today and you just want security? Do you want to go sit on a beach somewhere at some point and retire young? What does that look like? And then let's together create conditions around you to try to build you towards that reality every single day. We had to get creative in some cases to do that. And in some cases, we probably fell short for some of our team members in contrast to others that we were able to help more. But what I hope everyone felt, and what I think everyone felt to some degree, is that the organization wanted to see them succeed. And as a result, they wanted to see the organization succeed.
Based on your previous experience in other industries, did you find more people that were committed or passionate about the cannabis industry, so as a result, they kind of would do anything to stay involved with it?
Often that was true. There were a lot of people that we would bring on to the team that had previously worked in plant touching entities or had previously worked for other software companies or ancillaries in the space, and were really, really passionate about advancing the industry and started to get wind of the culture that we had been creating at the time. So we basically latched on to those people and said, we want you to help us advance the industry together. We are together more than we are apart individually. So that was a really loud message that we tried to broadcast in our hiring funnels. We also put out a lot of materials, podcasts and so forth, content that were really contributory to our ability to hire great talent, because we talked so much about culture. So when people feel as though it's a great place to work, they will give you so much more than they would if they were just showing up for a paycheck and doing enough not to get fired.
Right. What were some of the issues that cultivators, processors, and other people in the industry were having with compliance? And how was Growflow built to solve those problems?
Well, make no mistake, compliance adds pretty much zero value to a plant touching business outside of keeping their license. So it doesn't add any money to their pocket. In fact, it takes money from their pocket. So what we attempted to do is blend the business critical activities that they knew they had to do, like inventory management, like employee management, like analytics, like selling and moving product as quickly as possible. We wanted to blend all those activities with the required compliance activities, and we wanted them to spend as little time in the state compliance system as humanly possible. Depending on how those systems were configured, they actually had to spend zero time in those state compliance systems. There was one that they still had to kind of touch depending on the state they were in, but it was very minimally in comparison. We also had a number of experts on staff specifically to help those operators navigate the state compliance systems. So effectively what we did is we wanted to make their processes easier. We wanted to save them a tremendous amount of time every day. We wanted to eliminate their mistakes and accidental illegal activities, because that is a real problem with the state compliance systems. They actually allow you to take illegal activities and then hold you accountable for them. So our software had safeguards in place. to ensure that operators were not able to do that. What's more, we built over the course of time a roster of former plant touching subject matter experts that served as our what we called our customer happiness team and our customer success team. And those teams were devoted to both a proactive and reactive response to giving those licensees the human touch, making sure that they felt taken care of, making sure that they didn't feel confused and afraid, because most of them know a lot about their business, selling cannabis, growing cannabis, right? They're not lawyers, they're not compliance officers. Some of them weren't even previous entrepreneurs, and a lot of them are doing this on their own dime. So being able to, at the very least, alleviate the stress and anxiety of not knowing a very rapidly shifting and poorly communicated set of requirements from the government, not knowing whether or not they'll just randomly be rated or anything like that. What we found is a lot of the state compliance organizations, the independent ones, would actually, work with Growflow to ensure that they could test, they could basically, when they were hiring their inspectors and their enforcement officers, they could actually use Growflow customers as training sites. And it was a way to dip their toes in the water with a compliant and well-run organization before they walked into one cold that was a mess.
What were some of these accidental illegal activities?
Well, it really varies by state and by the point in time. But certain activities, like sales over certain purchase limits, or certain types of plant movements, or how each licensee is performing various activities based on what each license is allowed to actually do in each state. Those are possible within certain platforms without the licensee knowing that they're illegal. The licensee, of course, is going to assume that all the actions they can take in the state compliance system would be compliant, but they're just not. And that's still the case today.
With these rapidly changing and poorly communicated compliance issues state to state, how does your company stay ahead of it, to make sure that all of your partners in disparate states remain in compliance?
I'll give you two answers. One was before we were acquired by Dama Financial, and one since we were acquired by Dama Financial. So before we were acquired by Dama Financial, the answer was we had in-house compliance staff that kept track of every single thing that each state government was doing in the moment. Those teams would work really closely with our product and support teams and also our sales teams to make sure that everyone was in lockstep with what the truth was and what the reality was. So in essence, every conversation we had with licensees served as education. So even though we were at times trying to sell them things or trying to solve a problem or fix a bug that they were experiencing, all of those calls added value because those licensees knew that they could ask questions and we would have answers for the most part. And if we didn't, we would go find them. Since we've been acquired by Dama Financial, which the transaction closed in February of 2022, Dama Financial is the world's largest financial services company in cannabis. Together, the combined entity serves almost 3,500 licensees nationwide in some capacity or another. They do FDIC insured banking. They do, consumer payments. They do payroll. They do cash pickups and armored service providers. They have smart safes. All these different things that have an even deeper level of scrutiny because outside of just being in compliance, they're also in financial services. And as a fintech, you've got a tremendous amount of additional scrutiny to follow. So we actually have gotten better at that as a combined entity because we've blended two of the most tightly regulated organizations you can find in any industry, finance and cannabis, and we've blended them into one package. So effectively now, if you're doing business with any of Dama's products, including Growflow, what you can count on is the fact that the team behind it are by far and above the best in the business. Everyone has kept tabs on every single thing that's happening. Legislatively, we've contributed to those types of bills. We've got relationships with the largest financial institutions in the world, the largest cannabis companies in the world. We're listening and working with them every single day and making sure that we can evolve accordingly.
According to your website, you now have nearly 1,500 cultivators, processors, distributors, and retailers that are customers. Do you serve one group in particular better than the other, or does the Growflow platform, is it equally strong for all of them?
Yeah, the numbers you gave were just actually on the Growflow product. So at Dama now we serve more than twice that many.
Right.
And many of them are, and that number is probably a little old because we've cross-sold a number of those companies into each other's products. So there's now a blended suite of services, throughout compliance and banking and finance, et cetera, for all of those companies. And that's been a dream for especially the larger operations and the multi-state operators and so forth. What I would say is pre-merger of the two companies, Growflow really held a lot of pride in being the country's largest wholesale, so cultivation, distribution, processing, seed to sale compliance company in the country by far, by a wide margin. And it also had the fastest growing by percentage retail point of sale software, retail tools in the country as well. And that's evidenced by a number of the different reports that are out there that are publicly available. For every 10 customers that came on, we would lose about a half of one, maybe. So that was, twice the rate of any competitor. That was largely down to the fact that our service team was far and above the best one in the business. And, if you look anywhere on the internet about Growflow historically, 95% of all the positive reviews, and there are a ton of positive reviews, reference that specifically. So that's really what we built for, and the strength we wanted to augment. As a combined company, that has continued at a faster rate. So at this point now, while we have still continued to serve and maintain leadership in wholesale seed to sale, what we now have done is we've shifted a lot of internal resources to be more innovative and be more focused on retail companies. We felt that they have been the most underserved, despite there being a plethora of service providers in the industry today. And we have now, where we used to be 90-10 or 80-20 wholesale to retail, we're now more like 50-50 in terms of new incoming customers, and that trend is going to continue to rise. So I would expect by the end of this year, it being more like 75-25 retail to wholesale. So that's something that we've been really, really excited about, because we feel that by deepening the fit for both, we believe that the future of the industry in many states is vertically integrated, if it's not the reality today. And because of that, having one cohesive tool stack, the data flowing seamlessly from one to the other without clunky third-party integrations, you can be confident that what you're seeing is reality. And that the fact that you have one single neck to choke if you feel like you want a change made, you can feel confidence in anything that you're seeing, whether it's in your banking portal or consumer payments or payroll or your cash pickups or your point of sale software or anything in between.
How would you describe the software? I've only looked at the screenshots and what's available on your website, and it seemed like very straightforward, easy to use dashboards. How would you describe it?
For the most part, if you're looking at the wholesale product, it looks a lot like a Kanban board. So left to right flow. The goal was to make this as intuitive as possible for customers. When we started to work with customers, a lot of them had, especially for wholesale companies, so they're your cultivators, your processors, your distributors, et cetera, their operations were so dramatically different, licensee to licensee, that we basically had to accommodate for hundreds of edge cases. So the platform is actually highly, highly configurable on a state-by-state basis. So that was one way to think about it. It is very much catered to the unique compliance needs of each state because they are so dramatically different. It is state system agnostic as well. So the product more or less works in the same or similar ways, regardless of the state traceability system from the government. From a retail perspective, our emphasis has been speed and maximum visibility. We wanted to make sure that each licensee could, transact business at the rate of their customers coming in rather than the rate of their software. And our retail customers have been the most vocal for the features that they want to see, the things that would make their lives easier, the things that would save them time. And by being very customer centric, just in the last year, that platform has evolved by leaps and bounds to the point where we serve some of the largest chains in the country now.
You've mentioned time savings quite a bit. And the number you have on the website, which might be dated now, says that you save people 43 hours each week. Is that still accurate? Are you saving people more time now since the merger? That alone, that is an incredible achievement.
Yeah, that would have been kind of like the mean benefit for Growflow specifically. It is a lot more, especially since the two companies have come together as one. For example, there's in most states, the banking and cash nature of most of these businesses, it's so heavy and the risk is so high. A lot of the times that they would have to drive hours, have one of their employees drive hours with a pallet of cash by themselves to the bank. And a lot of times they would be subject to theft and they would have to be very careful. It was almost like it still felt like the black market. Whereas now, effectively, in combination with Dama, not only do they get the time savings and efficiency with Growflow software, but licensees can install a smart safe in their location, and that safe is fully insured. They can put all their cash right there in the safe and effectively forget about it. That cash instantly gets dropped into their Dama account. They can use it that day to pay staff, to pay vendors, anything and everything in between. And then as that safe fills up, an armored service provider comes and picks it up and takes it right to the Federal Reserve. So like that entire component of their business, which would take, oftentimes, 10 to 12 hours per week at least, just per team member that was dealing with, the cash component, just that piece has been a huge, huge time savings and alleviation, especially for some of our largest companies, because that's per store. So that gets that value and that savings and that efficiency gets stacked, item by item to the point where, you can actually have, if you're a multi-store operation, you can have now 2, 3, 4, 5 employees who were previously doing a lot of these manual labor activities, very mechanical activities, lean on software for it, lean on Dama for it in general. And those people can now be, actually doing revenue generating activities, sales, marketing, customer advocacy, signing up new customers, forging new partnerships, et cetera. So like the time savings is just scratching the surface. You can also reallocate human hours of your team to actually do things that help you grow your business.
The time savings alone makes it seem real easy to calculate the ROI. So what are the biggest challenges that you face in terms of bringing new customers online?
Yeah, great question. I would say the biggest challenge that we face by far is the fact that most of our competitors don't actually compete with us on features. They don't actually compete with us on the efficiency that we drive for licensees. They actually do a lot less in that regard. So the strategy is cost centric. They want to just race to the bottom on price. And there are a lot of licensees who hear that and who see those prices and opt to potentially make a switch. So we basically say, all right, look, this is what you need to know. We will help you facilitate that switch. When you're ready and when you see the difference, we'll be here waiting. 9 times out of 10, those licensees come back because they know that what they get in contrast to what they pay, a few $100s of savings per month compared to dozens of hours of their time and frustration and risk that they incur as a result of all the things that we alleviate from their shoulders. Those are missing. While they can take some basic compliance activities, and don't get me wrong, there are a number of companies that are maybe just one person or a husband and wife team or something like that, and they're self-funded, and $300 means the world to them. And they don't need the hundreds of additional features that a larger operation would need that we have. And for those customers, we basically say, look, this is also what you need to know. You're not going to get the level of service that you're used to. but you need to see that and experience it for yourself so you can quantify the difference. So we actually encourage our customers to try, other and evaluate rigorously, competitors who are promising lower prices for the same experience. And the God's honest truth is, it takes a lot of people, a lot of really high level people to provide that experience. So it's not easy to replicate, and it's impossible to do so for the prices that a lot of competitors are charging. So I would say the race to the bottom is real. It's a distraction from being able to offer value to the licensees. And so we do our best to facilitate as often as we can.
Throughout your history with the company, it sounds like the company's always listened to been very customer centric and adapted as a result of their needs or demands. What are some of the bigger changes that you've seen for the platform as a result of customer feedback?
Yeah, I mean, the holistic approach that we took to that entire process was, a lot of companies kind of tout themselves as the hero for the customer. And they really promote themselves pretty hard. We do this, we do that, we do this. We took the opposite approach, and we said, you're the hero of the story. We want to make you the main character. We'll be Yoda or Mr. Miyagi, right? And we'll make sure that you get everything you need. But at the end of the day, you're the star of the show. This is not about us. This is about you. And we want to make sure that everything that we do can be articulated in the outcomes that we're driving you, that you've identified upfront as your goals. So the evolutions in the platform have been very, very licensee specific, have been very, very state specific. So what we've actually done is we've created configuration panels behind the scenes that allow our product managers to configure our products for the unique needs of the licensees in each state. And we've also built out a very, very large kind of back-end administrative permissions and features panel. So licensees can actually turn things on and off for their unique situations as they see fit. Some of them are high volume single store operations. Some of them are multi-store operations. Their needs are different. Some of the cultivation and processing facilities that we have as customers, some of them might be one licensed shop. Some of them are several hundred licensed shops. And we need to make sure that we're facilitating every one of those conditions to make sure we can make every single one of them successful. Because if they don't, there goes our referral loop, which is our most profound marketing channel. So just in essence, the changes that we make to the product, completely driven by the customer, completely changed state by state. We take a holistic approach to each state. So each state has to forge product market fit all on its own every time for each product. So it is the hardest job of any founder in any company in any industry, is reaching product market fit. We've had to do the same thing for every single state that we're in, for every product that we have. And we've had to follow, it's two sets of compliance restrictions at the same time, both, banking and finance and cannabis compliance. So all those things, when combined, just make the interaction with the customer so critical.
With such a close eye on each state and the regulations, what are your expectations for new states to come online and the timeline that might occur?
Yeah, I think it is inevitable that nearly every state comes online, within the next couple of years. In what form, it's hard to say. Usually it's crawl, walk, run. So, very selective early days, medical use only, especially in the states that it's been difficult to pass legislatively speaking or politically speaking. We have seen a lot of shortcuts in the last couple of years where states will pass both medical and recreational at the same time. Oftentimes those are for tax purposes. So I would expect that with COVID and with some of the economic fallout that's going on right now, the threat of a downturn or a recession, sorry to use that scary four-letter word, those things we believe will accelerate the timeline for a lot of states as they try to get out from under, a reduced revenue goal themselves as a state. And that, when combined with the fact that there are, the states that don't offer it now are very, very much the minority. And usually the slowest going is the first few. No one in these positions want to take risks. Their first priority is keeping their jobs. not embarrassing the state legislature, and making sure that their campaign financiers are happy. So it took a while for those first few to drop. When the results have started to come out state by state, there's now pressure everywhere for states that haven't come online to come online. There are some states that still take a hardline stance, and we think that those days are numbered. So when new representatives come into office, when new state politicians come into office, we expect that a lot of them will have a new platform that enables legal cannabis in some way, shape, or form, because now it's a bipartisan issue. The reasoning might be different. Some will be more financially driven. Some will be more socially driven. Both are true, and we want to make sure that we're there to help.
What is your stance on third-party integrations? I know that you had talked about it a little bit previously. It seems like previous iterations of at least Growflow fit well with third-party integrations. But as I've talked to other software companies, not just in cannabis, but in other industries, that's where a lot of the bugs come into play, is when third-party integrations don't always go as smoothly as you would like them. So where does the platform stand now in terms of third-party integration?
Yeah, at Growflow historically, and now at Duma, we kind of have the same approach that we've always had, and it's a very customer-driven and demand-driven approach. If we feel that a certain integration is necessary to make sure that we're offering the best possible experience for a licensee, that's exactly what we'll do, even when it means that integration cannibalizes our own feature set. So that was a stance that we took early on, and we wanted to make sure that our North Star metrics were the customer outcomes that we drive. And the customer outcomes that we provide, licensees with are oftentimes driven by how their current operations work. So, for example, Growflow historically had a wholesale marketplace. We have an integration with LeafLink. Growflow historically, had a number of different features, like we have an online ordering portal. We have an integration with iHeartChain, right? So we have a number of different integrations, but we don't open our API because we do have a lot of sensitive data. And because of that, we're very, very conscious of who uses it and how. We want to make sure that the integrations that we allow are supporting our licensees and their privacy, supporting their customers and their privacy, are making sure that we're exclusively spending as much time as possible on what licensees have asked us for, rather than trying to build features for the sake of our own growth rate. And there have been times in the past where we could have likely grown faster ourselves by doing things in a slightly different way. But that was not what made Growflow. That was not what ensured that every single month of the company's history, the company has grown. There hasn't been a single flat or down month in the company's history, and that has continued to be true to this day. With the combination with Duma. And Duma has a very similar philosophy in that regard. It's very, very customer driven. The restrictions are higher, especially in financial services, because we need to make sure that our banking partners are kept happy and know that their data is safe as well, and so forth. So the bar is higher, but more often than not, when there's enough demand for an integration, we will do one. If it's just one request from one licensee, what we'll typically do is we'll explore the outcome they want from the integration and see if we can deliver the outcome, even if it's not through the exact path they've outlined. However, if enough of them ask for the same thing, we'll just go ahead and do that.
How has life changed for you since the merger closed in February?
So this was actually the 8th exit I've had as a founder, co-founder, or CEO in my career. And every single integration post acquisition is challenging in its own way. You have two different organizations with, in this case, about 100 people and about 140 people coming together and trying to very quickly mesh cultures, communication, collaboration, technology, decision-making, et cetera. Both organizations are asked to really trust each other very deeply, despite not really knowing each other very well. All while making sure that the trajectory of the company and our ability to serve our customers remains up and to the right. It's a very complex environment in that regard, but For me, it's one that I'm definitely familiar with. So we made sure to lay out in the very beginning, here is what we can expect. It is going to be challenging in unique ways that many of us haven't experienced before. It's going to be exciting in other ways that many of us haven't experienced before, but we're in it together. That's been really exciting over the past 3 months, since the merger has closed. As one company, we have made pretty substantial strides already on our ability to serve more licensees faster and more deeply than we ever have. Our team, are starting to gel more. We're starting to get folks on a good operating rhythm and a good cadence. And across the board, we have aligned around goals and metrics and ways of doing things. So for me, the most exciting part is seeing how the team reacts to change. The team was very rooted in the culture and the highly automated operational nature of the business before the merger. And we came together because of the fact that our strengths as businesses really complemented each other. What Growflow was great at, and what Growflow was weak at, the contrasting realities were true at Dama. So we knew that there would be things that we could learn from each other and take advantage of together that wouldn't be available otherwise. And beyond that, we could create unique differentiation for the market, for the licensees across the board in the entire United States, that just didn't exist and still don't to this day. Like being able to blend the type of platform that Growflow has and the type of financial technology that Dama has, that's unique. It's one of a kind at this point. So that's what we're all really excited about.
How did Growflow and Dama come together?
We began by exploring a partnership. We found that a feature that we were building was rate limited by just how many of the licensees on Growflow were unbanked. And we were searching for a stable solution to have an answer for our licensees. And we were not finding one. There were a number of vendors who claimed that that's what they offered, and we tried all of them. And then our director of marketing, Sean Weiss, who had been with Growflow since the very beginning, even predated me, he actually brought Dama to the table and said he had some fantastic conversations with them. They're interested in having a conversation. So we explored a partnership for a long time. I was able to build a relationship with Dama's CEO, Ann Katsopoulos. She's very, very smart and experienced in her own right in fintech, as is the entirety of their executive team. They're incredibly high-level folks with decades of experience in financial technology and some of the largest technology companies in the world. And that was really impressive to me because I knew that in order to get to the next level that we wanted to get to, and we had grown the company really rapidly since the very beginning, but we knew that the next wave was going to have to be very unique and special. We needed a lot more differentiation really, really quickly. And as we started to talk about and we tried to explore Dama's goals for the future, and they were exploring our goals for the future, what became really apparent really quickly was that our goals would instantly be reached by merging with them. Their goals would instantly be reached by merging with us. And we were able to just do the things that we felt we wanted to do together a lot faster and a lot better than we were able to do apart. So both parties were looking for a 1 + 1 = 3 or more scenario, which every entrepreneur is chasing in an exit scenario. And we were very fortunate to have found them. We're really excited about what's to come.
So what's next for you? Are you going to be with Dama for a while? And I also like to wonder if you plan on staying in the cannabis industry, because I see so many people come from different sectors. They come to cannabis and then they're there for life. Is that your outlook?
Great question. So I plan on being with Dama for the foreseeable future. We have a lot of big goals to achieve together. So that's my plan. I want to make sure that it's a successful integration of the two companies, and that can take some time. I want to make sure that we can reach a lot of the goals that we collectively have, and that also can take some time and focus. I also, kind of as an entrepreneur, I'm satiated still to this day by the mentorship that I provide to new founders coming through accelerator programs like Techstars and 500 Startups and a plethora of others that I work with. So I get to satiate that desire to be involved in other industries, every single day in some capacity. I also selectively do work one-on-one with later stage founders and help them, navigate the epic roller coaster that they're experiencing every single day, because, you name it, I've gone through it. The highest highs and the lowest lows that you can experience as an entrepreneur, and have come out the other side. And so that has been one of the most fulfilling things outside of Growflow and Duma that I've been able to do in my career. So those two things, when combined, have kept me really happy. In terms of years in the future, it's hard to say. I mean, my goal here is to make sure that I'm able to build a team of people who are smarter than I am and get out of their way. If the time comes where the team is more effective without me than with me, then my time in the company is done. Until that time comes, I'm going to be heads down and trying to make an impact on the industry.
Before we get out of here, is there anything else that I might have left out, or anything in particular that you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience knows about Duma?
I would say reach out and book a call. We have a number of different products and services that we provide that solve massive, super huge problems for licensees. We've been doing it for a long time. We're now the largest, single organization serving the most licensees of any kind in the country. We have now started to really integrate the two technology stacks together. And so over the course of time, the value together deepens and provides licensees with a pretty significant operational advantage over their competitors. So we are in every state. We are, state system agnostic. Everything that we do from a financial services side of the business is completely transparent and compliant. You don't have to fudge your numbers or your entity names or your address or anything like that like you would with some of the kind of gray hat shops out there that say they offer, financial services. So everything that we do is in tight collaboration with the largest financial institutions in the world. They know exactly what we do. And so there has not been a single, bank that has shut off service for any of our licensees. And the reality for most of them previous to Duma is, they're in a bank for 3 to 6 months and then they get shut down without warning and for no reason given. Even though that bank has told them that they serve cannabis, and it's usually made for, a decision made by somebody well above that person's pay grade that sold, the company. So I would say book a call, let us walk you through everything that we have. Our team is ready and waiting to give you value. We put our money where our mouth is. We don't do anything that we don't believe in, and we have some of the largest companies in the country as reference customers. So like the proof is in the pudding. The NPS score we've been able to reach historically has pushed 75, which is world class. That's for a reason. We've been able to get a 100 or 99% to 100% customer satisfaction score every single week since 2019. So those are not by accident. Those are our North Star most important metrics. And that comes by providing the best possible experience for licensees.
Well, Travis, thank you very much for taking the time today. I really do appreciate it. And, learning more about what Duma has done and plans on doing in the future.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. It'd also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to reach the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. Also, you can subscribe to our newsletter. Make sure you get the podcast sent to your inbox first. All right, for Travis Steffen, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.